Alright, so we got a special treat for you today. Tentacle porn. But seriously though, I am going to be installing these Carbon Miata silicone hoses on my NA6 Miata. I'll probably watch some tentacle porn later though. So the kit does not come with instructions. So I'm going to show you real quick where all of the hoses that come in the vacuum kit go. There's 12 pieces total. This is the first one I fit here. This one and this long one here actually are for your coolant. Replace these two lines there. This one goes on the brake booster. You've got your these are intake piping that I took out. This one goes there. This one connects onto here and down underneath your intake manifold. This one goes on the back of the intake manifold and connects something like that. This one replaces this small line right here. This one goes from this chrome piece of pipe to this connection right there. This one goes on the valve cover to intake manifold. This one goes on your charcoal canister there. And the last piece goes from here up underneath the intake manifold to the throttle body. So I'm gonna start throwing some of these on and I'll catch up with you in a minute. You want to be very careful when you're removing any lines that have a plastic fitting at the end, because those are very easy to break. I just had to super glue one of these back on. So pretty much here and on top of the charcoal canister, I just took a razor blade and cut a slit down it to make it easier to pop off so I didn't break anything else. Alright, so I got all 12 hoses with the vacuum line kit all put on. Like I mentioned, most of the hoses, or pretty much all of them, you're going to have to trim a little bit to get the perfect fit, except for there's one hose here which goes from this little vacuum sensor to this piece here on the intake manifold throttle body. The factory hose runs underneath it like that, but this one is not long enough, so we just have to run that one over the top. Tomorrow I'm going to put on all the coolant lines, and there's a little trick too. If you want your, I like to have all these facing down, and a little trick I did to get them like that is twist the hose farther to the right, and then put the clamp on the side, and then you can twist it back to its natural resting position, and that'll put the clamps on the bottom. Alright, so today I'm getting ready to do the coolant lines. Everything went nicely yesterday, installing all the vacuum lines. The car started up a little bit, the idle was a little bit rough, just while it built up vacuum pressure again, but the car is running and idling very smoothly, so I'm happy about that. And so the first step for doing the coolant line is make sure your car is not warm, because hot antifreeze will burn the shit out of you. And you want to have something to catch your antifreeze if you're going to reuse it. Make sure it's a nice clean container. I've got this bucket here, and on the bottom of the radiator you can see this right here, the little Phillips head screw, is the drain. Just after you undo that screw, you'll see a little bit coolant starting to piss out. So just undo your radiator cap and it'll start coming out nice and quick. There we go. And if you want to reuse your coolant, just make sure you drain it into something nice and clean. The coolant capacity on the 1.6, I think is 6 liters. So that's about 1.5 gallons. So keep that in mind if you do decide to get new antifreeze. I'm gonna see how, mine looks like it's got a little crud in it, but I'm probably just gonna put some new stuff in because I have a few jugs lying around. And definitely don't leave antifreeze sitting around. I know animals like the smell of it and are attracted to it. A dog might try to drink it, something like that. It's toxic shit. Dispose of it properly. The environment will thank you. If you're having trouble getting any of the old hoses off, this is what I do, and take a razor blade, okay, and cut a slit in it. And then you can take a flathead screwdriver, stick it in there and force it up and spread it apart. It'll come off. Just make sure you have the right hoses in your kit and everything before you start hacking up your old ones. Definitely the two that are the most pain in the ass is this one that attaches to the side of the engine block and then down lower on the throttle body. It has these shitty spring clamps on it, and you can only really grab 2 of those tabs. You can't get all 3, so I'm definitely putting this back together with hose clamps, at least on some of these. I think I've got them all off now, so I can start putting it back together. All right, so I've got all the lines off and laying next to them, all the new ones to replace them, so I can measure them, because some of them are going to have to be trimmed. So I've taken every coolant line off the motor, and I still have this one here. I opted to buy the silicone hose set and the cooling hose set from Carbon Miata, and I think that maybe the kit just had a duplicate of this hose in it, because it's the same as this one here. Because there's no other hoses. I'm not sure where this one would go, and it's the exact same size as that one, so maybe you get one in the kit, or maybe I got an extra by mistake. I don't know. I'll hang on to it in case I need it, I guess. So I'm gonna start trimming these guys, cleaning up my spring clamps and putting her back together. This is a good tip to follow if you are trimming your hoses to length. Do not trust the little ribs as a marker for a straight line. Just wrap a piece of tape around, electrical tape, masking tape, whatever you got, to know that you make a nice smooth straight line all the way around, and definitely use a very nice sharp blade. So I finished the install of all the coolant lines. I ended up hitting a little bit of a roadblock on these smaller lines because they have a pretty small inner diameter, and all the bungs were my old hoses were kind of rusted to them. They had rust scale on them, and those hoses are a pretty tight squeeze. They didn't want to go on, so I had to sand them down and get all that rust off of there, and then coated them with some Vaseline, and finally got them all on. That one under the intake manifold's a biatch. And I started, so I got all that all figured out. I just had to refill my coolant. I started to put in my air intake from DDM Works, and so the first thing I did was install the heat shield, which I then had to remove, because first you have to attach the airflow meter to it, which I did, and then put it back in and reinstalled it. But these factory bolts, you can't tighten them down because you can't fit a socket in there. So I'm supposed to back these ones out and use these bolts that it came with. So this will be my third time taking it all back out. And if I had simply just read the instructions, then everything would have been fine. So my own fault that I have to take this out again. In a wire brush, and I'm kind of scuffing up the adapter that comes with the intake, because the filter comes in a bag and it's pre-oiled, and every time I get it on there and start tightening it up, it just squirts right off because there's oil all around on it. So I'm scuffing this up, and I'm going to clean the rubber boot on it, and hopefully I don't want to worry about it popping off while I'm driving or anything like that. This should help. Alright, so I am all wrapped up. I just filled up my radiator. I'm going to take it for a ride. I don't know if I'll be able to hear the intake over the sound of my exhaust. I drove the car down to the lake here. Test out some new air filter and stuff. Definitely a very noticeable difference in heat. Just sitting in your hand there, you can really feel a huge difference. So that actually makes the car feel quite a lot more peppy too. I can almost make it up hills in 5th gear now without having to downshift into 4th. So I'm pretty stoked about that. I know a lot of people do the coolant reroute, and it kind of would have made sense for me to do that where I was replacing all these hoses and stuff, because you see these two tubes here goes behind the headers, so there's a pipe back there. So the coolant reroute will keep you a little cooler. So I'll probably do that in the future when I go with some forced induction. But for now, the thought of my car warming up nice and quick in the winter and being nice and toasty warm, not exactly a downside for me right now. I also redid all my brakes. I accidentally deleted all the footage I shot of me installing the brakes, so props to me for being a retard. But these are my mad slotted rotors from Disc Brakes Australia, and EBC green stuff pads in there. Also painted my calipers. I got the paint from g2usa.com. They can make brake caliper paint for you in any color you could possibly imagine, so that's pretty cool. So the car is braking good, running good, so I'm pretty happy with this now. It's kind of all over the place as far as colors go in the engine bay, but I think I might just go rainbow themed and see how many people I can piss off. But definitely happy with these mods, and I'll catch up with you again soon for the next one. I don't know what's planned next. I'll have something though. Are you gonna go in the water? It's chilly. I was just swimming in here 2 weeks ago. Now we're getting fucking frosts at night. She don't mind it. Is that cold or what, Lou?